I could see my own hands trembling as I glanced down at the clicker, the little plastic wedge that, just moments ago, had granted me the illusion, I thought, of some control over the slide behind me. Now my thumb hovered above it without purpose. The room was cold, a hotel conference center in Palermo, dim except for the harsh glare of fluorescent panels above the stage and the too bright rectangle thrown by the projector against the screen. I could feel my shirt sticking to my back, heat prickling under my arms, the way sweat does when you're not nervous, but desperate, a cold, sickly panic. "Thank you, Tomás," a voice cut through the silence. The way he pronounced the accent, the rolling T's in his vowels, sounded like mockery. "We wish you luck in your creative pursuits." A few scattered claps, mostly polite. One boy, about my age but decked in a suit and distracted by his phone, let out an audible sigh. I caught the eye of my cousin Gabriela in the third row. She twisted her lips to one side, that practiced combination of pity and amusement. Every instinct urged me to shrink, to slip off, to fade past the thick velvet curtain and out onto Avenida Santa Fe, to blend into the city's endless river of faces. Instead, I lingered too long on stage, paralyzed by the blank stares. Finally, the event manager, an older man in glasses, approached with tragic gentleness and put a guiding hand on my shoulder as he steered me away. In the corridor outside, I could already make out the hissing whispers. "He thinks a camera is a business? Selling prints from Plaza Dorrego isn't a startup, che? Nene, he should have learned coding." The November air, even at dusk, was sticky with humidity. The city smelled of hot pavement and fried empanadas. I ducked my head, gripping my battered camera bag like a lifeline. When I looked up, my mother was waiting for me on the sidewalk, arms folded. She managed to look both proud and nervous, the way mothers do, chasing hope she herself didn't quite believe in. "They're fools, Tomás," she said, forcing the words. "They want numbers for things they can't understand." Behind her, my Uncle Mariano and my cousin Diego were sharing mate, hunched over Diego's phone. He scrolled to a meme of a street artist clutching for pesos, holding it where I could see. "Míralo, es igualito," Diego snorted. I walked home alone that night. On the number 152 bus, as the city reeled by behind foggy windows, I stared at my camera, a used, decades-old Nikon D700, tape patched over the viewfinder. Buenos Aires unfurled through the scratched glass like a broken contact sheet. Glinting taxi cores, wrinkled market vendors, a couple leaning against a graffitied wall beneath the blue bloom of jacaranda. This was what I saw. It's what I tried to show. My family said, "Get a real job." My friends said, "At least shoot weddings for cash." But every fiber in me recoiled from the staged, the manicured, the fake smiles and stilted kisses. I needed to capture what was true, the unseen tension in a dancer's foot as she leapt in La Boca, the lopsided hope pressed into a hand reaching for lottery tickets at once, the old man who came daily to Retiro just to watch the trains depart. Maybe my dream was ridiculous. Maybe art was a luxury, a child's fantasy in a city that ate its weak. But I kept shooting. I woke at dawn to chase the best light, waited hours on corners for reality to unfurl its secret beauty, and then returned home to edit on a scavenged laptop until my eyes burned. I couldn't pay rent, and I hid eviction notices beneath piles of old prints. My mother sent food, hiding her worry beneath staccato WhatsApp messages. "Un poco de arroz, toma, hijo." Even she, after a year, couldn't help her sighs. She began nudging job advertisements across the kitchen table. "They're desperate for tech support in Microcentro," she said. "Just part-time, to help." When money ran out, I pawned my first lens, a Zeiss I'd saved for since I was 17. Each time I did, it felt like amputating hope itself. But the city had changed me. It was in the way I started to move through crowds, searching always for light and shadow. My skin thickened. When Diego sent me mocking memes, I replied with silent photos, a woman reading beneath the purple canopy in Plaza Laval, the flutter of her page caught in luminescence. When my uncle Mariano rumbled, "Ya está, pibe, el arte es para ricos," I remembered the way my father had bought me my first plastic camera from a San Telmo flea market before cancer took him, how he'd whispered, "Show them how you see." Still, rejection sat heavily, baking into me like the southern summer sun. The city's art world, too, was indifferent. I emailed portfolios to local magazines and international contests. Most never replied. When they did, it was the same. Thank you, but no. I spent hard nights in my tiny flat, the pull-out cot groaning beneath me, a perpetual ache in my chest growing heavier. Yet, a funny thing about hope, it can be as stubborn as defeat. On the worst nights, I walked out to the Plaza de Mayo and watched as the city emptied, the soft glow of street lamps burning away loneliness. 2 years drifted by, each month chipping away the softness inside me, revealing something harder. I sold prints at weekend markets, hustling beneath the lazy palms while tourists fingered their wallets. I shot free photos for tango schools and handed out business cards, cheap things I designed on library computers. I became invisible, a silent observer of other people's lives, yet always I felt I belonged nowhere. Until one Sunday, while packing up my stall at Feria de San Telmo, a tall, thin woman in a long linen coat paused before my table. She seemed out of place, a bit foreign, hair coppery beneath the late afternoon sun. She thumbed through my photos while I muttered my pitch, expecting her to smile and walk away like all the others. But she stayed, eyes settling on a black and white print, a boy standing at the edge of Puerto Madero, staring at a boat in the fog, longing coiled in his posture. She looked up. "You took this?" she asked in deliberate, accented Spanish. Unafraid, I nodded. She turned it over, studied the signature. "Can you send me a portfolio, Tomás?" I almost dropped my box of unsold prints. She handed me her card, Isabelle Fournier, curator, Jeu de Paume, Paris. It was another month before the email arrived, and many more before I understood what was happening. Isabelle's gallery had secured funding for an exhibition of young Latin American photographers. She wanted my work to show not just in Buenos Aires, but in Paris, Berlin, and beyond. The photography world, so indifferent a season before, was suddenly at my door. Frenzy followed. They needed high-resolution scans. They wanted stories, what the photos meant. I wrote about the city's ache and resilience, about exile and belonging. Paris, Berlin, Istanbul. Names that had always existed only on films and travel magazines. I had to borrow a friend's jacket for the vernissage in Paris, standing in a room full of strangers as people pointed to my work, whispered about intimacy and unexpected tenderness. I, the broken-kneed boy with the battered camera, choked down champagne and smiled. Days bled into months. The schedule became a madness of airports and passport stamps. For the first time in years, I had money. Just enough at first, but enough. I paid back my mother for the groceries, wired cash to cover the months of rent I'd missed. Occasionally, in a hotel room hung with faded curtains, I'd stare at the ceiling and feel a strange detachment. In those moments, I miss Buenos Aires so acutely it hurt. The smell of car exhaust and parrilla smoke, the rattle of the subte rails. Success glittered, but it felt weightless. I called my mother from Paris. She wept when I told her the news, her voice breaking with relief and disbelief. "Sabía que lo ibas a lograr," she repeated, but it was only half true. She believed because I made her, because I believed. For Diego and Mariano, there was only silence. Diego left a brief comment under a gallery post. "Nice filter, Coso." Still, I pressed on. The world opened to me. I showed Buenos Aires to the world. I showed Buenos Aires to myself, captured at a remove in liminal half-light. A year later, I returned, not triumphant exactly, but pulled by a gravity I couldn't escape. Home is memory burned into muscle. Buenos Aires was nearly as I'd left it, but somehow changed. I noticed new cracks in the pavement, new murals on Avenida Corrientes. The city thrummed with that same beautiful fatigue. My mother greeted me at Ezeiza, arms wide, her hair grayer but her smile brighter than ever. She squeezed me so tightly, my ribs ached. That weekend, under a sky bruised with impending rain, I joined family for asado at Mariano's flat. The old wounds pulsed as I stepped inside. The smell of scorched meat, the clatter of mismatched cutlery, the swirl of voices. Diego avoided my gaze, busying himself with bottles of Quilmes. Mariano's face was unreadable beneath thick brows. Gabriela, always the brave one, broke the tension. Bienvenido, artista. You haven't changed. Her eyes softened. Maybe you eat better now. There was some laughter, small and awkward. I sat beside my uncle, the silence so thick it hurt. Finally, as the meal was winding down, molten cheese atop slabs of beef, the table messy with crumbs. I reached into my bag and placed something heavy on the table, a glossy, hard-bound photography book. On the cover, a girl leaping over a rain-swept curb, hair flying, the city blurred in motion. My name printed in silver. I slid the book toward Mariano. For a moment he didn't touch it. Then, reluctance melting to curiosity, he opened it. Diego leaned in. They turned the pages. The images were familiar and foreign at once. San Telmo, tango dancers framed in gold, an old man bathing in evening light at Parque Lizama, children playing football on cracked concrete. But now they saw, perhaps for the first time, how I'd seen them, not as failures or afterthoughts, but as poetry. In the center was a 2-page spread, a photograph of my father, young and laughing, holding a camera aloft like an offering. Mariano looked at me, emotions swirling behind tired eyes. "What is this?" he asked, voice thick. I pointed to the back cover, to the gallery logos, Jeu de Paume, the Berlinische Galerie, Istanbul Modern. I showed them the foreword, in French and English, the words International Exhibition, visible even in foreign tongues. For a full minute, the room filled with the sound of turning pages, occasional gasps. Gabriela teared up, pressing a napkin to her face. Diego said nothing. Finally, Mariano cleared his throat. "Mira vos, che, todo esto, from your little camera?" I nodded. He closed the book and set it in front of him, hands trembling slightly. "Perdóname, Tomás. I didn't see. I didn't know how badly you needed this, or how much it mattered." I searched his face, saw old stubbornness dissolving into something softer. Pride, maybe, or regret. Diego finally met my eyes. "You know, not bad for a street kid," he managed. He grinned awkwardly. "You'll have to show me Paris one day, hermano." The room filled with a different kind of silence, one that vibrated with possibility, forgiveness, a sense that the old ways of understanding me might finally be dissolving. Afterwards, I walked outside. The city's night moved